Welcome everyone to the AK Pallav show, where we bring interesting and exciting stories of NRIs and people from the diaspora who are based all over the world. Today we have a very special guest, Hemant. Hemant has not only studied and has experienced some of the global brands both in India and abroad while working in consulting. But now he actually has picked up a problem which is very close to probably millions of people in a diaspora, and he's solving their financial needs and problems through technology. Hemant startup iNRI also got funded by world's one of the world's most famous venture capital firms called YC, which is called Y Combinator, and San Francisco, but travels all across the globe wherever his clients take him.
Yeah, thank you, Pallav and Akshay, for having me here today. I am very excited to speak to you as well as the audience that we may reach. Going back many years, so I born and brought up in Bombay, India, and I lived my first, I would say, 10 to 15 years, or which is formative years of my life, out of a suburb called Bhandup. It's in Mumbai, and
Yeah,
I think
I know about it.
as a
Don't
kid,
know it, but yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah.
yeah. So as a kid, I think I mean, used to be good in school, but however, the real kicker happened when I started participating in competitive exams. I think right now from standard seventh or eighth, right, and that's where I got introduced to you know like the competitive exams, and then later on IIT, which is another one of the most, or India's most popular competitive exam, right? So, and I was always interested in math, science. So it really got me interested over time to pursue engineering as my profession. Getting into IIT, definitely requires a lot of labor and patience. And initially, to be honest, when I got into the coaching in standard 11th, I wasn't sure whether I would crack it because if I saw the stats, it was quite baffling to me. Like, so many people or so many students apply for the exam and very few get in. And I probably was a bit underconfident then. Did not really feel I could make the cut. But then I think I took a different approach here where I try to shun the noise, and not think about who I'm competing, but rather think about myself. What can I do? And rather compete with myself, right? I would say, and just work on making it happen, doing the lifts that I can possibly do. And so I think by standard 12th, I became more confident as I also gave mock test as you are part of that coaching. It gave me more confidence that I can do this. And I really don't need to think who I'm going to compete with, who, are they better than me? Are they worse than me? Doesn't matter. What it matters is, can I be the best what I can? And I think that was the approach throughout my IT coaching. And I feel that was the success formula for me getting there. And then I got into IT in 2013, in 22, did my bachelor's in computer science and graduated in 20. After then, I joined housing as a founding
Yeah.
engineer. I was, fortunate to be part of their growth story because I think housing at that time was like a poster boy in the startup
Yeah,
ecosystem in
Definitely.
India. They recently had raised a good capital from SoftBank then, and I was in this period of really high growth from 2013 to 15. I think that gave me an interest into look at not just technology but about entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
and I think I built that dream into me that maybe tomorrow, someday, I don't know when, but I would want to start up on my own. And I think a lot of IITians, just what they do is like when they're working, as soon as they graduate, they also give CAT. I don't know. It's like I think Indians have a strong. They become used to giving exams. I think, So I also gave up CAT. I gave the CAT exam, and I didn't work hard to be honest, but still got through, and I got a offer at IIM Ahmedabad to join. I thought of that opportunity to learn about business. Not necessarily, I would say, an MBA teaches you about anything startup entrepreneurship. Like you can be an entrepreneur without being an MBA, but given that I thought this is like an Harvard of India and what I can do better here, maybe I should go for it, right? And so that's how I got into IIM then. And the time there, yeah, you had a question.
No, I was just curious. First question: did you were in the small town like Bhandup area, right? So
Yeah.
did you take any coaching for IIT, like which many people do, or what was your path to prepare for IIT?
Yeah, so I joined this coaching class called Career Launcher. I would travel
Ah,
to
yeah,
Bhan.
CL, right?
Yeah.
That's how it's known here.
That's right. So I would travel there every day, do my coaching there. It wasn't that popular, I would say, but still, like I would say, I found a good set of teachers. This is very
Hmm.
important. I feel like those who help you out, especially your teachers, your mentors, and sometimes even your peers, right?
Okay. And how long did you work for housing?
So I worked for 2 years, from 2013
Like
to
13 to 15.
yes, yes,
Okay. And what was it like? Because I probably Akshay as well, but I do remember housing being like the PayPal kind of the Indian ecosystem at that time,
yeah,
and was definitely garnering a lot of media, press attention. Obviously, a lot of positive, but at this before everything kind of became slightly negative.
yeah.
How was the ambience there? Like, could you go back to 2013 and try to share maybe some of the anecdotes or what it felt like to work in such a young company started by your own college seniors? What
Yeah,
was the ambience like, and what did you learn from it?
And
yeah.
and
I
and
think
if I interrupt before that, also, why did you even join housing in the first place, right? I think that's probably another interesting story to dig, because I don't think that was before really startups were cool. And of course, I think housing was cool at that moment. However, still, it would have taken some thinking to actually go from IIT Bombay Computer Science to this startup, which God knows where it was going to go.
yeah. Yeah, let me answer that first. And it's very interesting how I landed up. I was not very intentional about it, but this happens to
Yeah.
be, come my way. The reason I say that because out of, so IIT has a system called placements, right?
Hmm.
That's where how get into the professional world. And I got placed into a Japanese game making company called Green. And this was in 2012, like during the placement period. And I was supposed to be going to Tokyo, Japan, to join them the next year after I graduate. However,
Hmm.
before a few months I could join them, and they were also like a small company, and I think when they hired, they were really booming. But about to joining them, that time, I would say in less than a year, things had changed for them, and they're not looking to hire, and so they had to cancel the
Mm.
offer. And so this
Oh,
was a
really?
Mm.
very setback, surprising to me, and
Yeah.
because I was all geared up to be flying, in 2 months, but that didn't come through. However, I mean, a friend of mine joined housing.com at that time because I got some connects, and since they were started by my seniors as well, so I met one of them, and really found their vision to be interesting, and the way they were operating, right? And they were also were looking to hire engineers into their founding team, and so that overall offer was very interesting to me, given my situation as well as what I could possibly learn at housing. So I think it was kind of a happenstance how I landed up there. But I think I really value the experience there. To Pallav's point, right? I mean, it was a very dynamic environment where it was, I think, nobody was more than 25 or maybe 30, right? So it was a group of very young people trying
Mhm.
to make something happen. Every day would be a lot of fun, but at the same time a lot of work also. We would sometimes work late nights. I remember a couple of nights we actually I ended up staying the whole night because we wanted to release something. So it
Mhm.
was kind of a 24-hour continuous time, work at housing. And there were obviously chill days as well, just like in a startup, and a lot of parties as well, like hanging out. So very interesting times. And I think what I learned from it is like, you are never too young to start something, right? And
Mm.
because you have to have that audacity to dream, and you may not achieve it, that's okay, but never dream less just because of your age or because of your experience. You can, it's like that, like you may have heard of this rule called 10,000 hour rule, right? If you practice something for so long, you will become a master at it, right? So I think that's the idea. Like, you work on a problem for so long that you ultimately become an expert on that and can actually make something out of it and create an impact. So I think I learned that a bit, and that gave me that confidence. Maybe today, that's where we are.
Hmm. And what were you doing exactly for them, or like did
Hmm.
you had a specific role or a project, or what was your
So I
responsibility?
was in the engineering team. I was a backend software engineer, um, and I helped build multiple products, right from rent. So housing, essentially, if you may remember, it's a property listing platform at the end of the day, right? So we worked on different verticals where you could rent a place, or you could buy a apartment, or you could buy a land, and so we would have these listings, and essentially the infrastructure that would power these listings or the transactions. I would wo- I worked on that from a back end engineering perspective.
And during those 2 years, what was the growth like in terms of funding or number of people working for them?
Yeah, sorry, I think the light went out because of automatic.
Do you want me?
You need to
I
keep
can repeat
moving a
my
little bit.
questions. I, wa-
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was yeah, I was asking, during the 2 years you worked there, from the day one till you time you left, what was the growth like in terms of number of people or the funding raised or something of that
Mhm.
sort? If you could share.
Yeah, I think in that period, housing raised around $100 million,
Oh wow.
maybe a bit more, but that was a public announcement. In addition to that, I think the team grew from maybe 20, 30 to over 500, and
Wow.
even many cities. Like housing initially started from Bombay, but then expanded into multiple
Yeah.
locations within the country. So it was rapidly growing into cities, as well as trying to build more verticals. Like I remember, like when I
Yeah.
started, it was just rent. Then they started rent, buy, land, even tried listing properties in Dubai, and condos, and then penthouses, like trying to just sell as much what you can, like whatever comes into real estate. So that was pretty interesting to get a lot of exposure into such things.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I think almost like I know I'm probably jumping the gun here a little bit, and we'll get into what you're doing at INRI, but really at like a fundamental level, right? That was many years ago that you were housing and you saw one way of growing a company. At a
Yeah.
fundamental level, how are you placed on your principles of how to grow a company, and how have, like, let's say your top three principles and how they've changed what you saw then versus how you do it now?
Yeah, I would say one principle that I think definitely continues to be is customer obsession. I think you really need
Mhm.
to speak to customers, work with their problems, right? I mean, really feel that their problem is your problem, and try to find a solution along with them, right? So this is super, super important as you build any problem, I would say, any business. You really need to obsess with them, obsess with their problems, and find a good solution for that. Apart from that, I think value wise, I think what we also keep it today is, um, one needs to have a higher standard, like, I mean, in terms of their work, like have a good accountability. And I think that was also instilled back at housing in some way, because when the team is small, you are given a lot of ownership, like you can do this and
Mhm.
that, but ultimately you have to be accountable to deliver on it, right? So I think there's something we still kind of keep it close to our heart, as I build my own startup today. Yeah, I think those would be the two major things I would say, on a day-to-day basis. I think these things are important to keep in mind.
if if I, and this is something that while, because while we were talking earlier and I was looking at your LinkedIn profile as well, and I saw something interesting. You were talking earlier about that you did the same step one, do engineering and at an IIT, step two, do MBA at an IIM. And then I saw that you were working at McKinsey in New York. And then at some point, you switched back into software. And then you went on the journey of working with multiple companies after. So before, I think you share something about the journey, that one, but I think that that switch of going back was something that I was definitely very keen on digging a bit deeper into. Was this something that you thought that, oh, you liked software development more, or was that a bit more of a practical choice? Really give us an insight around like what happened, that this switch between different career choices between business and technology.
Yeah, no, I think as I recall, definitely it also happened to be happenstance in some way. So let me take back there, right, to you. So as I was at McKinsey, like obviously McKinsey is a great company. You get to work with very high profile clients, and also get to travel a lot, learn selling. I think in the most important thing I
Mm-hmm.
think that you learn at consulting is how to sell, like how to sell an idea, how to sell or how to influence the other party, right? So something that I also try to inspire from that experience today is how to
Mm-hmm.
sell. But I think what I missed at McKinsey was the ability to build something. Like, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you are creating a recommendation, which could be an Excel sheet or a PowerPoint and maybe a document, right? But you're not
Mm-hmm.
really executing with your client, right? And I think missed that. And as I worked at housing, given that experience, I was missing that opportunity at McKinsey, and I could foresee my years there if I continue to be there that I would not get an opportunity, even that in the long term, right? So, and being in the US at that point, I realized that how big tech is evolving, how technology in general, is shaping up so fast, and then there are so many startups that are coming up, and I saw that opportunity as to be something that I was more interested in. However, engineering, like switching back to engineering, was not my first choice. It was I was more looking at a
Uh-huh.
product management role, because that's a usual path.
Okay.
Like, you are an
Yeah.
engineer, or you go to a B school, and then you join as a PM if you're interested in technology, right?
Yeah.
However, I
Exactly.
realized that getting a PM role for me was a bit tougher because I had my business school degree in India. If it
Mm.
had been
Right.
the case that I did a B school degree from a US college, it would have been much easier. But it even though I am maybe very well recognized in India, it may not be so. That's what I realized, that it may not be so in the US, because the business school is, at the end of the day, is a more of a local degree, I would say. um, but still, I think I took my chances into applying for the big tech and startup to have a PM role. But unfortunately, I think I wasn't getting there. But
Mm.
engineering was also, as I said, like, was super interesting to me. So I got some opportunities to work at startup, and I was working with a recruiter, and he came across this a role at a e-commerce startup based out of New York. It was a fairly small company, but they were in talks to get acquired by Walmart around the same time. And
Mm.
I thought that was a very interesting what they were trying to do, and it was a small team. And I think what it also in way appealed to me is because the team was super small. Like, I think just 5 engineers or total. The
Oh,
tech team
wow.
was
Yeah.
including the CTO, right? So I thought of that opportunity as something I would take up to build that team and grow there, and essentially, build their own infrastructure as well. So I took that opportunity as something that this was very close to being at housing, I would say, in some sense, right? So that
Yeah.
really attracted me then, and I took that opportunity, although it was a engineering role. But as I recall back, I think those 2 years were really important for me to kind of come where I am today, both personally and professionally, because while I was doing my day job, which involved building a team, and over that 2 year period, I happened to recruit, I would say, 4 or 5 engineers into the team. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, at a point in time where in the last 6 months of my job there, my CTO and my manager left. So I was the only senior guy in the tech team now, and I actually happened to be an acting CTO in that role.
Oh, wow.
Which was very interesting to me, because I then worked with the CEO and the C-suite directly to execute on the challenges or actually ongoing transition that was happening with the business. So I think apart from that, I also, as I was doing my day job, I started getting interested in options trading, which became a side project or like a hobby project to me,
Mm.
which evolved over time, which I think leads me to the YC chapter from there.
That's already very interesting. I just have a comment on the consulting part, because I think, Hemant, I told you as well, I work in management consulting as well, also for
I
BCG.
was definitely gonna say, Pala, maybe that's something that you should comment on.
Yeah, and before that, I had startup experience twice. Once in Mumbai about opening my own tea cafe, and then after MBA also doing having a micro insurance product of my own and then commercializing it. And then I joined BCG. So I was very excited, and they were also very excited to have me. But I very quickly realized that, man, it is not at all what it looked from
Yeah.
outside to me or to a person like me, because I start from the bottom of the value chain,
Mm.
and I was excited a little bit about what can I do here, maybe what my partner is doing selling. But to reach the partner stage will be like couple of years, and nobody's going to make you partner if you think like that. Because in my startup world, I was already on a day-to-day basis on WhatsApp. I was meeting the C-level people for the decision makers myself, also for something which I created. So I quickly lost interest in management consulting. It's probably kind of similar to what happened to you as well, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
But
And the
then
other,
actually, like Pallav, let me. Yeah, sorry. Go on. Go on.
no, I'm kind of asking something else now, but you can comment.
Yeah,
What?
I know. I was gonna ask you actually. Like, I know we are going to talk to Hemant, but I'm going to ask the question back to you then, because you did end up spending so many years in consulting, right? It's not that you just came out of consulting the moment you realized that. What
Yeah,
kept you going
yeah.
for, I don't know, X, whatever that actual number of years that you were in consulting?
I think one, there was still excitement about traveling to new places, meeting new people,
Hmm.
working with
Hmm.
smart, like brushing your shoulders with smart people. And in parallel, I kept looking for some idea, side project. One of them clicked, like the micro insurance thing, but
Yeah.
others didn't click. So I was like, okay, let me just be a little bit safe, which probably is not the best strategy, and continue building skill set and experience while I land on that thing which works. That I think that's what kept me going, and it is a skill set which is very sellable. Hemant would know or agree, but definitely there are limitations which come with it if you are bit more
Yeah.
entrepreneurial in nature.
Yeah, yeah, I would concur on that. I mean, definitely it teaches you a lot, but if you are into more of a building thing, it may not be the best place.
Yeah. And Hemant, the other thing I'm curious, was McKinsey stint the first time you went to US and started working there?
Yeah, that is true. So soon I graduated from IIM. I moved to New York to work at McKinsey.
So like 2017, 18 or
Yes.
so.
Yeah,
And
2017.
yeah, so what did you like? I think we have asked this question to other people as well. What, in a broad sense, what is the difference or what is the special thing about the US business slash startup ecosystem, if at all? Or
Mm.
do you think there is something going on which is creating this amazing magnetism about it? Did you feel it, or what? How was your experience working and spending time in US versus, let's say, big city like Mumbai, for example?
Yeah, yeah. I think US, I would say, as of today, still kind of leads innovation, right? In some sense, I would say more prominently technological innovation, right? And being a technologist myself, I was always attracted by how big or small companies in different stages are trying to innovate into technology, right? And so I always had uh, that's a dream, I would say, in some way, to work in the US.
Hmm.
And as of today, even I think US presents a lot of opportunities, right? And it's not just, I would say, computer science or software engineering, but I think in many fields, right? Bio or health, finance. Many of these companies are based out of the US, who are leading the world in that sense. So I think if someone were to be considering, definitely working at the forefront of such things, US definitely presents a good opportunity to work here.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely cutthroat in the sense, like you would have to work really hard. I mean, because given, let's say, the immigration situation, right? I mean, it can be sometimes stressful in a way where you may be working a bit harder to make sure that you are in a job and you are making your presence feel into the company. But at the same time, you do get that opportunity to kind of work differently and also at the forefront of you know uh,
Yeah.
the business
But
or entrepreneurship.
I also have a question, or I'm always curious about
Hmm.
the Indians, or let's say the first generation people like us, who after completing education or everything, then immigrated to US for a
Yeah.
job or something. How, in reality, how easy it is for them to actually think of starting a startup? because like almost all friends of mine or my peer group, the top of the mind topic in their mind is always about the next visa renewal or next card or next this or next date of appointment.
Yeah.
And these are very well to do folks,
Yes.
they have families, they have a house, they're earning well, they're doing good in some of the very reputed companies. But I
Yeah.
sometimes feel it's kind of, I don't know, it sometimes feel a bit funny that they attract so much talent. And I'm
Mhm.
only talking about first generation, so not like the other, let's say the brown people who have been there like and born and raised in US.
Yeah.
But for people like us, is it real, like because you can maybe take benefit by being joining a startup or by being a part of it as an early employee or something.
Mm.
But how easy it is for you, a person like us, to start, because you're always like it's so
Yeah.
hard, the visa situation.
No, it is extremely difficult. It is extremely difficult, I would say, to start on your own in the US. And I have faced an exact path that what you are kind of describing, thinking of my visa renewal every other year.
Yeah.
Because if I recall, the number of visas that I have from the US, it's about eight, right? Eight US visas that I have. So I've applied or filled the application form eight times. I mean, one I've applied for as a visitor, then as a student for an exchange program I got from the IIM. But then when I got into McKinsey, soon after that, after 1 year, I applied for another job, and then I got at Facebook. Then I applied again, and as I got into my startup, I've again, did that the same. But coming to your point, it is very challenging to start on your own because of the immigration, because you're never sure of when that date would be when you get that freedom. Because let's say if you consider the Europe or many countries there, if you stay for 5 years, you become you get a permanent
It's
resident.
very clear, very black and
It's
white.
very
Yeah.
clear,
Yeah.
yeah. So you can plan your time and your career around it, right? But in the US, you're never sure. The date may get extended. If you see current timeline, it could be 10, 20, 30 years depending on where you started. And even after that, it's still very tricky. If you lose your job, how would that end up? Will you have to go back to India? Because the grace period that you get is pretty low, it's about 60 days. So it is tricky, and I think thinking of a startup in such a situation is very tough, because I think, as everyone understands or knows, startup success is about, maybe 1%, 2% at the best, right? And so how do you like balance that risk with another risk, which is an immigration, and it's not easy to manage that.
So may I ask you a little bit fast forward,
Yeah.
what's your current visa situation and how did you arrive at the situation? And
Mhm.
is it, are you safe, or like what's your current status?
Yeah, pretty safe, I would say, in some sense. So I am on a O1 visa. O1 is a visa that is granted to, as the definition says, to extraordinary people, or like people of extraordinary ability. What it
Okay.
means is
Mm.
like, there is a criteria list for being eligible to this visa. There are about like 8 points, and these 8 points are into different things, such as if you get recognized by a premier or some institution, or you're part of any such very exclusive group, or you may have high remuneration in the past, maybe a
Mhm.
published research papers and so on. So you have to show a bit of a direction and an achievement or a recognition into different things. And if you are eligible, you get an O1 visa. And so being into YC, getting here, I could be eligible. And I think, that's what made me got a O1 visa as of today. I think, and how I got here is basically a transitioning from my Facebook job as a software engineer while I was on H1B to H4, which is a spouse or dependent visa. Then I was on this dependent visa for 16 months. And while that period, I worked on my startup, got into YC, then applied for my O1, and then got that O1 visa, which I have it for almost a year now.
Mm.
So this period, I would say, in the transitioning period where I'm in H4, essentially was a bit tough because on an H4, unless you don't have a EAD, you cannot earn, you cannot draw a salary. So I did not get paid for these 16 months. Although I had a company, I had a funding, but you cannot get paid until you have a work authorization in the US.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like there you're allowed to stay, but you're not allowed to
Yeah.
earn.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you get to the point that you can earn, you have to first change your visa, And
Yeah,
then only you can actually get money in the bank account. That's really
yeah,
strange,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
And yeah, I know we are jumping a little bit here back and forth, but I think us both and also our audience would be really curious,
Mhm.
like why INRI, why this space, like where is the thinking coming from? Uh, how did you land it on this idea and to decided to pursue it?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, connecting the dots from what I mentioned earlier is like when I was working or when I switched into the startup after McKinsey, I got interested in options trading, and initially my thought was to just create an algorithm for my own personal capital, right? Like maybe put some algorithms out and did a systematic trading or create a tool out of by programming that could trade on itself and generate some returns. And
But
I would work.
not focused necessarily on India or something, like there is no India
um,
angle to it.
there is an India angle because I was trading in the Indian market, in
Hmm.
the futures and
Mm.
options space, and so my capital was in India. I was just trying to make
Hmm.
an algorithm out of it, a system out of it that could trade itself. So it was inclined towards India. However, I did not, as I said, my vision was just to be building for myself, but over time it happened to, like, I was, I think, if I reflect back, the only thing which got me here was being consistent, right? I would consistently work weekdays, like on weeknights and weekends, make some progress every other week, and after a period of 2 years, I create like a back end, a front end, a UI for it, and actually gave it to a couple of my trader friends in India who really liked that concept.
Oh,
And because I started as a retail trader, so my
I see.
being a customer myself, I built out a product that I think could be also be useful for retail traders, and that's what got me thinking into, can I abstract that tool out to make a product for the retail traders in India, right?
Mm.
Because if I face the similar challenges, what I could not find in existing solutions, if my tool can provide that, that is a product that people might pay for, right? And this was in 2021 where I got nudged by my wife and few of my friends that I should apply for Y Combinator,
hmm.
because YC is at the forefront of like early stage startups investing, and they also have a very clean process, I would say, in the sense of applying, because you don't need to be in the VC world or know them, or know a person in house that may get you there. It's a very clean and transparent way to apply and secure funding if you're good. Interestingly, we got the interview in the first application itself, right? And which was a very surprising thing of Firoz, because we were just, and we so when I say we, is basically I got a co-founder on my team. So as I was saying,
Mm.
this whatever I built until that period, I had done this solo. Everything, all of my ideas, all of the programming that I did it myself. But I understood the value of a co-founder when applying to YC, because YC do emphasize on having a team, right? And so I got
Yeah.
a colleague from housing when I was there to apply with me, and so we applied together. We got the interview. We just did it for a placeholder sake. We thought, we'll make a good application, but we did not have high hopes on it. But surprising to us, we got the interview without any referrals. And so that was a change of direction for me, in a way where I realized that maybe I can build something that, accelerator like YC would invest, right? Like that got me thinking or dreaming very big. And the feedback
What
that,
was the idea at that time? Like, what did you apply to YC with?
yeah, so the idea was like a trading platform for retail traders in India.
But isn't that some, like, from the sound of it, isn't that something already existing at that time? Or what was the different thing about it?
So not really. I mean, there are brokers, let's say Zerodha, Grow, and many such brokers, but they don't necessarily provide the tools or capabilities to trade more professionally. For example, as simple as,
Hmm.
let's say, putting a target or stop loss on a strategy level. So options are very complex compared to stocks, where you may have multiple options creating a single strategy. And so slowly, your trading can become very complex if you're not able to manage it right. And derivatives are a very high leverage play, because you know the margins you get to trade derivatives is very high, and though you could end up making a higher losses if you're not very systematic with your trading. So my focus from the tool perspective was to make you a disciplined trader by putting in rules into your system, which did not exist with many existing platforms then. Uh,
Okay.
so yeah, that's the idea.
So the
That
target audience was different, and also so it was not for mass retail trader,
was,
but people who already have some experience and know
yes.
this niche trading.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So it was aimed towards a more professional trader who had
Mhm.
an interest to make his trading more systematic and rule
Yeah.
driven
Right.
rather than more discretionary and be like, hey, I like this, and so I will do this now. So, right,
Yeah.
it was supposed to
Mm.
be a more
Okay.
systematic way to trade. Um,
And the
yeah,
algorithm was perhaps the more important part of the infrastructure there that you had spent almost like 2 years really researching and building.
yeah. So it was a mix of two things. One was an algorithm to trade on my money, but the tools that I used to make that happen was something that I could abstract it out for
Mm,
everyone, uh,
right.
right?
Mm.
So that's what that product essentially evolved into, which is still exists today. I mean, we're not working hard on it. It's called Trade 94. The website is still up, but I mean, it's running. The product is running. You can
So
still.
how did you then? How did the current company
Yeah. So
took its
yeah.
shape? Yeah.
So coming to INRI and the motivation behind it. So, but let me just say a bit about my YC journey here. So as I said, I applied to YC first. We did not get in, and then I've applied to YC twice after that. So in total, I've applied to YC three times.
Mm,
The first time we didn't get in, but we got a feedback which was very clear, in a sense that if you are full time, apply to us in the next batch, because I was not full time then. I
right.
was still working at
Yeah.
Facebook,
Yeah.
and because of my visa situation, I was not sure if I leave my job today, how would I really transition becoming an entrepreneur. And so I said
Right.
them, like, when they asked this, when would you be full time, I said likely in the next year, right? I mean, so it was like 3 months short of the year. This was in October 20. I was not married then, but I was scheduled to be married in the next month. So I thought that after
Mm,
getting married, I could be a dependent now, and
yeah.
so that was my plan then. But the feedback was clear in a way where it told me what to do exactly, like, be full time, right? And so
Yeah.
as soon as I got married after 4 months, in March 20, I resigned from Facebook. I applied to YC again, this time with a different co-founder. So interestingly, each time I applied to YC, I've applied with a different.
Different
Okay.
co-founder.
So you
Actually,
It's
also
quite
A/B
a
testing on that
pick and
front.
choose.
not necessarily, but I think it's a dynamic, like the startup journey is a very dynamic environment. Just like customers, product changes, your team also changes, and you have to be keep in pace with that, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, I applied with the second co-founder, but things didn't go well with him, in the sense of we realized we are a different personality and we want to possibly part ways. And so we made an application update that I'm applying solo now, and this time I didn't get in. So this, I think, was an extremely tough period in my startup journey, where I did not had funding, I did not had a co-founder, I did not get into YC, and interestingly, I was also expecting a baby around the same time. So extremely challenging to navigate that period, because I was actually feeling stupid about myself, that did I really make a bad decision leaving my job and now ending up in a place where I'm not making anything. I don't see you know light at the end of the tunnel. When I would get funding, I don't have a team member or co-founder, and I left my job with the hope that I would have all this, but I don't have it. And now I'm expecting a baby, expenses and everything, my time would go into making that happen. So is it really a wise decision that I make? But I think here, where I think the family support comes in, where I feel like my wife really helped me out in the way she, I mean, really motivated me, and obviously made sure that we are taken care of, in the sense of whether it's expenses, but in general more about the morale, right? Like, keep doing what you believe in, and don't give up. And the worst case is, like, you can always join again, right? And that confidence I at least had by then, because I already worked in the US for 4 years, So I'm very confident that if not this, maybe something else, right? So that's okay. And then we applied to YC the third time, and this time I was full time. I met my co-founder then, Nishat, who I applied with, and we got into YC then. Now, few months forward to that, after getting into YC, we pivoted. The reason we pivoted from this trading idea into iNRI, uh, because we realized, the mass or the target audience, or the ICP, the ideal customer profile that we're targeting is very niche, because we're not targeting every trader. We're targeting a very specialized niche segment, who are very professional in the way and also want to use these tools. So we thought that the market that we're going after is not necessarily very big and may not grow as fast as what we want. And I think YC here comes, where I very encouraging in a way, where a lot of YC startups actually pivot even in during the batch. Like I would say in my batch, roughly 30% of the YC companies pivoted. And YC actually
Yeah.
encourages that, because they want you to work on something which is big and something that you are passionate about. So even though you got into YC with an idea, they don't necessarily back the idea, but they back the team. They back the founders, where they think who has the capability to navigate the dynamics of a startup, where things may change so fast that you may even have to change the idea tomorrow, but should be very determined to keep going. And they encourage you to maybe try on an idea where you may have the skin there. For example, is there a founder market fit? Like, have you experienced the problem before yourself, in a professional or a personal way? Maybe a customer yourselves, right, if you were to solve that
Yeah.
problem. And this is where we stumbled upon this idea of serving the NRI market, because we see the Indian diaspora outside don't have necessarily the same access to the platforms or the services that Indian residents may enjoy. And a clear example of this is a UPI, for example, right? So UPI has been available in India for many years, I think 5+ years now, but it has
Yeah.
not been still very evidently available for NRIs. If you were to go to India trying to transact, you would need an Indian number, maybe an Indian bank account, and they may still not be, your NRE or NRO bank account will not still be able to get you the
Support UPI.
transaction
Yeah.
UPI, right? So we hear of so much innovation happening in India in terms of finance or fintech, but is not necessarily being translated to NRI. And one area that we also thought we could start with is investing. So INRI is about investing in India from outside, for the NRI market. We, like, as per my conversations with many of them, about 2,000 of them by now, I see a strong interest among them. Over 80 to 90% of them want to invest in India, but just don't know how to do it, because either they don't have the right awareness in terms of the process, or find it extremely difficult to do it from outside, given they are separated by time and distance, and even the paperwork that is required on top of it is extremely more compared to a resident Indian. So a lot of these things actually discourages this customer to participate in the India's growth. And we believe that we can close this gap by obviously using technology, but really understanding the problems at heart. We believe that no one has done it, and actually creating a solution out of it.
Yeah. Hemant, how is INRI different from, let's say, ICICI Direct or other platforms of these
Mm.
big traditional banks who offer access to Indian markets, right?
Yeah,
And I would say pretty much all the NRIs have a banking relationship back home
yeah,
before they
yeah,
leave for loans or whatever, for insurance. So how are you different than what their positioning and what their offer is?
yeah. A very interesting question, and a very valid one. Even what we asked ourselves, right? How are we gonna differentiate ourselves in an environment where everyone possibly has a bank? And even when we see our customers, I think 8 out of 10 of them has a banking relationship with many, when you one of the leading banks in India. But what we see the gap here is, even though they may have a bank account, they may not have a ICICI Direct, or basically a demat account. But even after they have a demat account, it is not very convenient to trade stocks from outside. Imagine your day to day life. It's very much into the country that you're living in as an NRI. How much would you know about what's happening in India? Because ultimately, when you're looking to buy stocks, you need to do a research, right? So buying into single stocks is definitely not easy, and managing that portfolio over time is actually even harder. Secondly, the cost of trading is high. Like in India, if you were to trade, there is a zero brokerage. But if you were to trade as an NRI, there is a certain brokerage that you will have to pay. So it's not free compared to resident Indians. Thirdly, the services or the platform. I don't know what your experience has been, but my experience of, let's say, using a Indian bank website is very hassling. The kind of UI or the experience that they provide is not super convenient. And I think as a NRI, if you're living, especially in a developed market, you are used to so much convenience and the simplicity, to the products that you're using.
Yeah.
This sounds very archaic, right? So I think there's a lot of innovation that can happen into that aspect, which has not been, put up by these banks.
And
And
where,
Mm.
yeah,
sorry, so it's basically that if you go by those four P's, like was it price differentiation, product positioning, promotion, where was the maximum gap where INRI came in and filled that gap? Like which of those pillars would you say, or combination of them? Was it price? Was it the product part, the UI, and the readily available information content about India? Where was the most gap and
I would say the
value gap?
product would lead here, in the sense of how we are making aware of how this process can be, making it extremely convenient with the digital approach, and really solving those problems more minutely. Because I think what we see the Indian banks trying to, or the existing institutions trying to apply, is the same flow that Indian residents may have to the NRIs, which may not necessarily translate in the same way, and which creates a bad experience because it creates back and forth with the customer. So what we are trying to do is identify the right solution here, the right path, so that it becomes easier for that customer to navigate or onboard themselves, and then finally transact on the platform. So product, I would say, is a key differentiator.
And
Yeah, I
and sorry, no, I'm just
yeah, go on.
going in the consulting mode. Like, so what's the market sizing or the realistic market sizing you guys are chasing at the moment? Because if you
Yeah.
see like 30 million diaspora, probably there are also a lot of blue collar workers. So probably not the ones you would like to go after, but
Yeah.
I would say at least good half of them would be people with knowledge,
Mm.
affordability, and also
Yeah.
the mindset of trading. So
Mm.
that's
Mm.
a huge one. Even if you do like, I don't know, using AUM market sizing or fee income market sizing, AUM even $1,000, 15 million is like 15
Yeah.
billion market size.
Yeah.
So how are you taking that big picture in mind, and at the same time coming back to the drawing board and trying to break that into small baby steps? Because I
Mm.
saw your post of celebration, I also liked it, that
Yeah.
you in last 1 year you have now 2,000 people who are active in your
Mhm.
community, and you also showed your hockey stick graph. So how do you balance both the big picture and also, while millions हो जाएगा बाद में, but how do you get 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000
Yeah. Yeah.
customers?
No, I think what you're kind of asking is the GTM strategy, right? I mean, like, how do we go to market given that we know that this huge audience of 30 million people living outside India has this need of, let's say, investing or maybe doing any other financial use cases, right? So the way we are doing GTM today is through a geography. Let's say, I mean, we're starting from the US. Although we do have customers from very different geographies, because we promote them, or, like, we have a social presence, so we have a very good social presence. We believe that you know the modern customer, or I mean the NRI outside, has access to social handles, right? I mean, like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. All of us, either in some way, are part of this internet system, right? Or
Yeah.
where we have a profile here, so we know that we can find these customers there. So we have a good social presence. We do run promotional marketing there. We create content that is exciting to hear in, and both from an entertainment perspective and then educational perspective, to get that hook. But apart from that, we still believe that we have to focus it on a way where we can be more closer to customers, right? I mean, because let's say if I were to target someone who's sitting in Singapore, it would be very difficult, because it's just too far, right? So being in the US myself, I feel even today 50% of our customers, or the users that sign up on the platform, come from the US or the North America region, including Canada. And getting your first 100 customers is a different thing compared to getting your first million customers, because the strategy that you will apply for the first 100 customers can be really different. And what has worked for us is being locally available. Like being an NRI myself, I have spoken and met many such NRIs. And you may have went to that post, and what we talk about there is that we have done webinars in the past, at least 16 Zoom webinars, and then 24 Zoom webinars and 16 in-person meetups. So we have met people actually on the field in the Bay Area, on the East Coast, the US West East Coast, even. We have also, my co-founder visited Dubai, like because he's based out of there, so he visited there. And then I also went Singapore this time, and I
You
went to
should also
India.
try to come to Amsterdam sometime.
Yeah, no, Europe is definitely on my list, UK as well. But I think that would definitely be sometime a bit later, and maybe in later this year. Even this weekend, we have a in-person meetup in the Bay Area. So we believe that meeting people on the field creates that sense of trust that is very important in our business,
Yeah.
because ultimately you are asking someone to invest in India, but they're going to invest through your platform, right? So and the ticket size is generally like $1,000, let's say, at least. So people need to be confident, or trust your platform, because if they're putting a big size like this, um, they should feel safe, right? And me being the founder myself has to be out there, meet people, so that they can really feel that confidence. So I think this is the way where we are getting those first 100 customers, and then that leads to also a word of mouth. Like, I think I have now been listening where customers come in and say, "Hey, I actually heard from a friend or from a WhatsApp group about your company, and it seems very interesting to me. Can you help me out with your process?" So we're seeing that effort, or that the time that we have put into making these different things is now actually giving dividends.
Very interesting.
Yeah, Pallav, if you remember, I think we because we were attending the Pan IIT conference a
Yeah,
little while
yeah,
ago. That was in Europe, and
yeah.
I think that was sponsored by perhaps probably like one of your direct competitors, and the name is also fairly similar, SBNRI, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
But
I
I
don't
think
remember the name, but
they're
I do
primarily
remember you met with that guy for coffee later on because
yeah,
you had a common
yeah,
friend.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think
what
he
was the
they are
name?
primarily focusing on the European market. I think the name of the company was SBNRI.
SBNRI.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah,
know
yeah, I
that?
do
Do
remember
you
the
do you, have you
guy
heard that
also
name,
made a
Hemant?
pitch.
Yeah, SBNRI is a close competitor to us. They are,
Mm-hmm.
I think, also have share a similar vision of making NRI finances simpler. But I think this market is very big, and in fact, it's good to have
Yeah.
competitors. It's healthy to have competitors where they are enabling that education, that awareness alongside us. And when we see the market is so distributed, right? I mean, the geographies are so distinct and different. Like US or the North America is different from Europe, UK, and then APAC, right?
Yeah.
So I think if we have these competitors, and we are also operating out of Europe, it's not that we're not there, but I think it's just good to have these competitors as well, which helps us increase the pie, right?
Do you have a lot of
Yeah.
them, Hemant, at this stage, or they are like a handful of them?
No, I think we have a good number. I would say 1,000 or roughly 2,000 of them from the UK and Europe, including.
No, no, no. Sorry, my question was in terms of competition.
Competitors,
You
number
have
of
a
competitors.
lot of them, or just a handful of them right now?
No, it was just handful of them, less than five, I would say. Actually, just two or three which are more prominent, and there may be a few more which coming, but um, it's just, I think, two or three of us that are trying to, I think, target today.
Yeah, because Akshay and myself, we are also working on a startup,
Mm-hmm.
and I did refer to you about the micro insurance
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
which I did in Middle East. It's a kind of a new version of that in the
Mm-hmm.
insurance space, focused on immigrants all across the globe. And we actually created our own product, insurance
Mm-hmm.
product. And we are working on two new products at the moment. One for everyone who lives abroad, Indian or non-Indian, like all the global 200 million plus immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is specifically for now the elderly people, because there are a lot of countries are opening up visas so that the Indians or other people, they can bring their elderly parents to stay with them for longer term, but there is no health insurance or medical insurance for them. So we're trying to solve that space. Maybe we can chat up later or later more on that. What we're trying to do.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think it's similar in a way.
yeah, for sure. No, that sounds exciting. I think this whole space of NRI finance is so much opportunity, right? And there are so many things that one can work on and start from different geography or start from a different ICP.
No, I'm sure like our audience, which are almost 100% of them, are either NRIs or wannabe NRIs. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
uh, yeah, would be quite good what you're doing. Yeah, if somebody's interested in investments or to learn more about
Mm.
Yeah.
it.
And of course, I think we should definitely, like, once we are live, we can include obviously links of any information that you would like to share. And I think because it definitely looks like our audience is 100% relevant
Yeah,
to what
yeah.
you're doing, so we are more than happy to
Yeah.
support in any way that we can.
No, that would be great. Thanks for the offer.
Or perhaps we can also like think, just thinking out loud, a kind of Q&A 20-minute, 30-minute session
Mhm.
like for our audience, where we not just do the podcast stuff but ask Hemant on more like the technical stuff, and which might be helpful for the audience
Yeah.
as well.
No, I
uh,
think that
my
sounds a good
question there.
proposition. Yeah.
I think we have way over time, Hemant. I'm not sure Akshay has a lot of questions boiling up in his head, but I do want to flag that we are over time.
Yeah, I think we can slowly, we can like start wrapping up.
No, I was waiting. Like, do you have any questions or?
No, I think we can wrap up. It's all right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Hemant. I think we probably need a part two
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of the just exciting space we all three are in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, but
No,
but
I
yeah, I
am.
think. Sorry.
No, just to share that, I'm excited what future holds for us. Like, I think the next 10, 20 years really would set that foundation of, how many of us, would build such companies that can create a good ecosystem for the diaspora.
Like an NRI stack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I think we have to cut it short for now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for being candid and sharing your journey, that's why we like 70 minutes passed by, no time, like
Yeah.
because you have a lot of
Yeah.
interesting twists and turns and places you have been,
Yeah.
and a lot of happenstance in your case, which has been working good for you so far. So thanks a lot for sharing and being so open about it.
Now,
We usually edit the podcast, so more like a full version, and also a couple of interesting shorts, because probably like they socials love the shorts.